This episode is brought to you by Bumble. Who says Valentine's Day is just for couples? Just because you're not in a relationship doesn't mean you can't get out there and live your best love life. That's where Bumble comes in. This February 14th, you can flip the script and give those relationshipers a friendly dose of FOMO. Say no to staying in this Valentine's Day and yes to more. More dates, more first kisses, more gossip for the group chat girlies. Do Valentine's your way. Date now on Bumble.
Joe. So, on today's episode of the podcast, someone's got a secret. Can you keep it? Swear this one you'll save.
That was delightful.
I had to look up what was the Pretty Little Liars theme song lyrics because I've never seen the show, but I know the theme song.
Considering the show that we're doing.
Yes. So gay. You know what? We're gonna start right there. We're gonna start right out the gate with this because obviously I'm the straight person on the call, so my opinion on this matters very little. But I found this episode to, as much as it's trying to be like a very special episode that deep down is trying to cure homophobia, I feel like it's doing it through the most homophobic way I've ever seen.
Before we get there, let's just talk about the cutest Sadie Cohen moment before the cold open. Yoga Lattes.
Yeah. Yoga Lattes. I mean, actually, let's talk about how there was a split second I thought I had put on the wrong show because I hit play and the fucking Veronica Mars theme song starts playing.
I know. It's like, come on now, sugar.
Yeah, I was like, how the Dandy Warhols have got to be in this weird bracket of bands that like just barely had a hit, but somehow had so many TV show theme songs under their belt. Like, I don't know, like Bohemian Like You was like a little bit of a hit. And that like, I never thought you'd be a junkie because heroin is so passe. Like they had these songs that were like minor hits. They never were like these massive hits. And then they're like doing the Undeclared theme song. They're doing the theme song to Veronica Mars. I think I looked it up one time and it's like 7 shows that have Dandy Warhol penned theme songs. I think one of their songs was the Best Week Ever theme song on VH1 for a little bit. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, like it's just like it's so random though for this band that like were kind of underground indie darlings that just like occasionally would make an appearance on the radio. Like, it's wild to me. And then they're kicking off this episode of the OC. Seth is dancing to try to get his temperature up or something for when Daddy Cohen was going to check his forehead like he was a 12-year-old kid. Like,
I know.
Motherfucker, you're what, a junior, senior in high school? Like, you can just be like, I need a day.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be, I think Kirsten would be more in line with that because, she came from privilege.
Yeah.
The rules are merely suggestions. I have a feeling that Sandy would actually require like him to have a doctor's note.
I also, similar to Sandy Cohen, did not get the first of Ryan's 2 jokes. It wasn't until the antibiotics that I was like, oh, the summer flu. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I, this episode plays with a theme that is near and dear to my heart, which is the on again, off again bromance between Luke and Ryan. So you know, they're like, oh, they're paired up to do this project, boo hoo. And then it's like almost immediately they're just like bro bonding, and I'm like loving it. They're like walking around in his dad's car dealership, and he's like, Atwood, you gotta sit in this car with me. You get like, I'm like, what? Wasn't this the dude who almost left you for dead in a burning building like 2 months ago?
The one who like you got shot.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
wait, let's
he
not.
He was shot on because of you just a few months ago. Like, which again, we are. Let me see something. Is next week? Yeah, next week is Christmaka. So we're just leaping through the school year. The school year started on episode 9. By episode 11, it's Thanksgiving. So this episode is early December because next week it's Christmaka time already. Like, they are just rushing through this school year. I would not be shocked if you informed me that this season ends at the beginning of next school semester with how quickly they're rushing through the first half of the year.
Again, the timelines are all strange for everything. And like I love we have a Luke-centered episode because everyone has problems. This is sort of a problem. It's not like returning a stolen car to a chop shop on Thanksgiving a problem.
Yeah, like that's like the handling of this issue is so much like their hearts are in the right place, but the execution throughout just feels so off. And I have 2 questions, honestly. Question number 1 is that like Luke and Ryan sit down in this convertible. The top is down, and they are blasting jet that neither Luke's father nor Gus, the business partner, hears as they walk into this.
They're so in love, Matt. Like, you're so in love.
Like, immediate like suspension of disbelief broke. He's like, oh, we should go say hi. And then like loud door slam as they get and walking across this echoey room and like nothing.
This echoey showroom of vehicles.
But then they see them kiss and they, Luke freaks out and he sets off a car alarm, and the combination of the music and the way they run out of this used car dealership, you would have thought that they saw the mafia make a drug deal.
Yeah.
And needed to run for their fucking lives.
Yeah.
Like,
you would have thought that like Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act seeing Vince kill that guy, like that's what they were running from.
I was like, this is insane. And I get that I'm seeing these. Well, no, I don't know. I'm seeing these through 2023 eyes, but I also feel like I was, if not these characters' exact ages in 2004, not that fucking far off. Like, if this is winter of 2004, then I am a freshman in college.
Yeah.
So like, and it's like, you know what I had in my freshman year of college? A fuck ton of gay friends pretty much instantaneously. So like the idea of like, oh no, like I get the ramifications that would scare you. I'd get the idea of like, well, what does this mean for my mom and me and my brothers and our family life? That is like a very real, understandable situation. But I don't think the show does a good enough job of conveying that that's the issue here. The issue here is, oh no, my dad's gay, which is probably I love the last 5 minutes of this episode. I love the rest of the path that it takes to get to those 5 minutes is some rough terrain right there. Yeah. But like Sandy Cohen basically telling Luke's dad, like, it might not feel like it now, but I don't think your son could be prouder of you. Like, you did something very brave to come out in this town. Yeah. Like, you are making a statement, like, don't disappear. You've already disappeared for the last however many years. Like, and it's like, I love that message. could we have maybe gotten to that message without some of the most like homophobic gossip jokes behind everybody's back to get there? Like,
I mean, like that was the most cringy part of it all, Matt, though, was like how like quickly it spread. And like, because like there's this scene where Kirsten's like, you know, oh, Julie's probably told everybody that I'm a drunk now, and that's gonna be what all the Noopsie the Noopsies are talking about. And then you get to it like, no, they're all talking about Luke's gay dad. And it's just like, I mean, yeah, I've been guilty of being like, oh my God, I got some delicious goss for you. But
look, I love delicious
but not, like,
goss as much as
like that.
That's what I mean. And like, that's the stuff that's like, and it's not even just that. It's like, look, here's the word on the street, so-and-so's gay. It's like he was the only father that never hit on me. Now I don't feel so bad. Like, it's like the like type jokes from like the students, from Seth at the dinner table. Like, there's just, and I get that like I am not here saying that Seth is in the right, because Seth is still making some fucked up jokes. But I get that Seth's coming from more of the irony of like, this dude who has literally thrown gay slurs at me since I was 6 years old is now like getting to deal with this and feeling like a little douse of karma. But I'm glad that Kirsten and Sandy shut that shit down like 2 jokes in at the dinner table. Again, Sandy Cohen is the most perfect character in this show. Like, I'm sure, look, there are 80 something episodes that I still have to sit through, but at this point in time, I find it hard to believe that there will ever truly be a storyline where I am not at least 75% on Sandy Cohen's side because he's on the right side of the argument. It seems very clear that that's how he's set up, and I love that they're consistent with that. Even like this silent treatment shit that we're getting throughout this episode, like, it never feels like it's a sincere thing as much as it's just like, I'm fucking hurt and I'm gonna like be petty for a little bit. But like, I mean, since Jimmy kissed Kirsten, I have been stressed out about where this plot line is going to go. So you have no clue how satisfying it was that it was like he finds out and like the issue is squashed and moved on in the same fucking episode.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, good. Like, that's what I want. I don't want 20 episodes of them fighting and this coming up over and over and over again. Like, this is how I imagine Sandy Cohen. He's understanding and that he's not hurt that Jimmy made a move on Kirsten and she pushed back. He's hurt that she didn't just be honest about it.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's part of most of this episode is honestly Sandy, Kirsten, and Seth all coming to terms with being more honest with people and not being secretive about shit.
Yeah, not being secretive, not being like, I mean, that's kind of the whole premise of the entire episode, right? Is like
the secret.
The secrets coming out and being honest about, you know, being honest about various parts of their lives. And ultimately, again, just like in the most cliche thing about like coming out is that ultimately it's for the better. And it does, like, the thing that's interesting about Luke, right, is that he is not, even though he is an asshole, there is still depth to him. Like, we see,
I like Luke throughout most of this episode.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like how he's acting about his dad for sure. But this leans more towards the Luke that I liked in the episode after he was shot, where he's like, hey man, you didn't have to rush me to the hospital. And I appreciate that. Like, I like that it seems more and more that Luke is becoming part of this group of characters as they're like getting ready to walk. I think, again, the last 5 minutes of this episode when they're all standing outside the school is beautiful. And I love that it's like, you are part of this like group of broken misfits that are on the fringe of what Newport Beach is now.
Yeah.
But here's where I'm concerned. They have flip-flopped on Luke so fucking much over these 12 episodes. I hope that this is like a moment of consistency. And I mean a moment in consistency of like, Luke is still going to have asshole-ish moments because that's who he is. He's a spoiled douchey kid.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we're still going to get a lot more love triangle between Luke and Ryan and Marissa before this show is over. But what I want is like time and time again, these three people, because I'm not including Summer in this, these three people have picked you up when you were down, when no one fucking else would. And if he goes right back to being a bully by episode 14 and acting like these people aren't his friends again, I'm going to be really frustrated with the character, because he's showing minor growth and then completely retreating back over and over and over again. And it's just frustrating because it becomes that thing of like the boy who cried wolf, where it's like, how many fucking times can I think that you've been redeemed before I just stop caring about you as a character in your storylines?
Oh, Matt, I'm so excited for you to continue. I really hope, like, I know you were kind of spoiled for The Secret, for what The Secret is.
Yeah.
I sincerely hope you are not spoiled anymore with regards to Luke.
Nothing with Luke.
Okay, good, fair.
I will off air tell you.
Okay, I
know that a specific character does not make it to season 4.
Oh, well, that's fine. That's okay.
Like,
that is a phenomenon. Like, where
but that that in the I think it's Trey that gets shot. Like, those are the only other plot points that I know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
someone
listening
gets
to
shot,
this,
I don't know if it's Trey, but someone gets shot.
Yeah,
but,
dear listener, if you're listening to this, you either know everything, and it's like you are delighting in Matt discovering things for the first time, or you're taking the Matt Kelly route and not knowing anything. So apologies, but this show is like over 20 years old. So,
and I feel like I spoke in vagueness on both of those because I didn't want to straight up say who, because I'm like, I don't know. Like, I know that there are people who are probably watching along with me as well and experiencing it that way. So just because someone spoiled a plot point for me doesn't mean I should then be like, well, now it's okay for me to spoil it for anybody who's watching along with us. But yeah, I The Secret was probably the biggest like thing that people don't really talk about that was kind of indirectly spoiled by you. But
yes, I know. And I was like, it's my fault.
And it sucks because there's part of me as I'm watching this that I want to go back and rewatch your video, but I'm so afraid that there's even more spoilers. I actually may need to have you watch the video and let me know how much more is in there, because I think you're more so talking in vagueness, and I think that most of the big stuff is not really said out loud. So I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back to that.
But yeah, the secret is, as we've said, Luke's dad is gay. I did also obviously I do edit these episodes and then re-listen to them when they came out. I believe this was briefly mentioned by Erin as one of her like most quoted lines of Luke is a gay dad, 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 Luke is a gay dad. Jet appearing twice in this one, which is I think what we're starting to see, what you've told me about, which is the like almost borderline band sponsored episodes getting closer and closer, because I am positive that this is right when that first Jet album came out. So it's like, oh yeah, someone greased a couple palms to make sure that there was a couple tunes in this week's big episode.
Yeah,
I mentioned this in, I want to say it was episode 6, perhaps. I can't remember, but I'm continuing to love the budding bromance of Jimmy and Sandy, honestly. Yeah. like them like hanging out, having dinner, like having lunch. Even I love that even Jimmy tells Sandy that he kissed Kirsten, and it doesn't even seem like Sandy's that angry at Jimmy. I mean, maybe that comes up in a future episode, but again, it seems like the thing that he's most angry about is Kirsten not saying anything. The fact that Jimmy said it first, to him is almost worse.
Oh, it's tons worse, especially because like here Sandy is, I mean, it's complicated, right? Because here's Sandy with like all the stuff with Rachel going on underneath, right? But like they're really solid, and that's like we are meant to believe as the viewer that Sandy and Kirsten are like rock solid and nothing shaking them. I mean, she rebuffed Jimmy. Like it, like, you know, it's a whole thing. Even though like he didn't say anything to her. It's that, or she didn't say anything to him. It's that she rebuffed him, and it's, you know, they're solid, except that she should have told him.
Yeah. So I did write down a note that later turned out to be false, right? Which was, I wrote down, how bad is Luke's dad at keeping this a secret if someone saw him while they were getting their car serviced in the morning? Then we find out that that's not exactly true. That Luke's mom actually is the person who started the gossip train, which is so fucked up. Like that is really fucked up to me.
Yeah.
And I get it. You're confused and you're hurt, but like, I don't know, call your fucking sister or your mom, or like don't like call every woman in town to like immediately start this smear campaign on something that was not easy for this man to do in the first place, and come out and like destroy this perfect life that he had. And I love that he says, like, I love my wife and my kids. Like I just didn't want anyone to get hurt. Like, the person who comes off looking the best in this entire episode is weirdly the cheating husband.
Yeah.
Like, because like you kind of understand where he's coming from. And man, there are some moments when they're at the baseball field that is like too much toxic masculinity for my straight femme abilities to handle. Like that is
I think it's just the like, I know that they say it a lot, and I know it, and I've seen the episode before a few times, but there's nothing that quite prepares you to hear from a person who is not, from a person in the context that they aren't straight, right? They are not a queer person. It's to hear it as a slur. What is it like?
That's what I was gonna say, because it's like there is that weird line with that. I feel like with that word almost more than any other word, where you can watch. Because man, there's not a lacking of movies and TV shows where that word has been used throughout the history of film and television for sure. But it's like it's used in one of two ways, it feels like. And it's either just like this thing that someone says and it's not in a, whether it is or isn't, the indication is that it has nothing to do with someone's sexuality overall. It's just a thing to call somebody.
Yeah.
And then there's this episode where it is like there is some venom on that word when it's being said.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so strange because like it would be one thing if like, I think that if we were to redo the OC now, Luke would be gay. Luke would be gay or bi or some dealing with something in that regard, and it would be just as gross because it'd be from like an internalized homophobia lens, and it's so like, I mean, to Seth's point, right? It is so delicious that like this guy who has been homophobic to him his entire life is like, the irony of it is what is delicious about it, not the actual hate. But it's fascinating to me that like at this point we still thought it was okay. Like this is like, we still thought it was okay to say that. It's like, you know what I mean? It's one thing when the word comes up in Will and Grace, right? It's another thing when it's like really like it's so weird.
So like the example that I always think of where I'm like, I don't know where this falls for me is the can't hardly wait usage in the scene where the bully is like having like this breakdown of like, you know, Amanda, where like he's just drunk and he's saying something stupid to like kind of get back at his girlfriend, but then ends up making himself look like an ass, and you just hear a girl yell it from the crowd, and then everyone starts laughing at him. That's usually the example I think of when in my mind I'm like, his actual sexuality has nothing to do with why they're yelling that at him. Like it's almost like they're just calling him a dummy in a lack of another word. But it's like it doesn't take away the origins of that word and the way that word makes other people feel, but it's, to me, it's like they're saying that in such a dumb, playful way in that movie that I almost give it a pass, where, like I said, this one, it is like when you hear the N-word with the hard R at the end. It's like, oh wow.
It's like watching Django Unchained.
Yeah. Like, you're just like, ooh, I know that this is accurate to the times, but it is still very uncomfortable to watch.
That's the thing too. And I remember I just recently saying that, like, yeah, it is accurate for the times, but it is still wrong, right? Like, I mean, that we're not debating that it was wrong, like, either way. But I think that it's just so fascinating because, like, if you are trying to say something specific, if there's a commentary specifically about the word, about hate, about all of that, then, like, it as a device, like, you still kind of have to interrogate why you feel the need, why it feels necessary to do that. It's similar in the, and again, this is I'm reaching here, so please come with me on this journey, is that I feel like it's like when you have instances with, like, gay people where they talk about, like, the trauma of, like, coming out and all that stuff. Like, if right now we're in an interesting era of representation in media where, like, you can have gay characters that, like, trauma is not a part of their stories, or it's not, like, the only thing that they're about. Like, you know, like, oh, he was kicked out because his family, you know, it was gay. He's living the dad's living this terrible life because he's gay. There's nothing with trauma. And I understand that some people want to have context because there are good stories and people do have those stories and there's characters there, but, like, we still have to interrogate why we feel it is necessary to tell those stories when we can just have gay people be gay.
My knowledge is fully from, like, Friends and Drag Race, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it also feels like it's not a word that I've really even seen the community make a strong effort to try to, like, reclaim or repurpose. Like, it feels like it is one of those words where it could very possibly, if we continue to be a fairly progressive nation, and I'm stressing this right now, I know that we are in a time period where it doesn't feel like we're progressive and really bad things are happening. But if you look locally, yes. And if you look at media coverage, yes. But at the same time, there is countless reports of a more openness to gay marriage and equality. Like we are progressing even in some of the most horrific things that have happened in this year. If we continue to progress it that way, I literally think that this word could literally be lost to future generations, because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of people trying to keep it alive. I could be totally wrong, but it doesn't feel like something like the N-word or anything like that, where people tried to reappropriate it and repurpose it or anything like that. It feels like no one wants to keep this word around. No one, especially not the full 6-letter rendition of the word.
The hard G, the hard T.
Yeah. Like,
so to comment on that, right? So to comment on that a little bit, I don't think that this word, the F slur, feel free, by the way, to bleep out that I said it. Because it might, to be completely honest, it might trigger people, and so I have that privilege, and I'm a part of that group, so I actively try to reclaim the word. It's not, I don't think we're there yet with the word, like where we are with queer. Like, queer is a very divisive word with regard among the community, especially among people of certain generation, of certain, like, where they grew up. Like, it's very divisive in that way. And I don't think we're going to get to a place where, like, you can check mark that you are the F slur as your identity. Like, I identify as this, which, like, to be honest, there are people who identify as that. It's part of a performance of their gender and sexuality that they are inhabiting with new meaning as a way to reclaim it. But that's a very intentional way. Not in the same way that, like, right now, like, queer is being used almost interchangeably with gay, as a way that people identify. I've used it to describe myself, even though like if even though that when I really interrogate it, I fully identify as gay as opposed to queer. But but I also think that like you're right in the sense that there's a generation that is going to be that's not going to see this as an acceptable word that like is almost going to go away. Like I feel I have my cousin has like two kids who were in like early middle school, and she said the R word. She's a lot older. She was an older mom, and her kids were mortified.
Yeah,
because like her kids were completely mortified because
did
they were
you
just
watch
like,
The History of Swearing on Netflix when that came out? I think it was hosted by Nick Cage.
did I that's the one where like Joel Kim Booster talks about how he loves the word bitch.
I think yes.
So
but they talked about how in that they're like
Mhm.
the future generation swear words, like they don't care about words like fuck and shit. Like those words
Mhm.
mean nothing. There is no shock value to that. But 20, 30 years from now, it will be the slurs.
Yeah.
It will be when someone busts out the R word, the N word, the
Mhm.
F word.
Mhm.
Like that is going to be the thing that like makes a room go quiet. And a bunch of people being like, I think it's time for you to leave now. You know what I mean? Like, like that, they'll like walk into their wedding and have fuck all over their vows. But if like the drunk uncle accidentally says the R word at the wedding, they will politely cut them off at the bar and ask them to leave. Like, and I love that. That's the future I want to live in because I like saying fuck. It's a fun word. It rolls off the tongue beautifully.
Yeah, it's delicious and beautiful. The same thing with bitch. Like, bitch.
Yeah.
Bitch is also like, but every word is divisive, and that's the other
Every
thing
word-
too.
look,
is we make the meaning of it, and so
It's the difference between if you and I were joking around, I was like, "Oh, you bitch." It
Mhm.
feels different than when Freddy says it just before murdering a female.
Yeah. Welcome
person.
to primetime, bitch.
Yeah, like you're like, "Oh, wow, that hits real
Yeah,
different."
that is very intentional misogyny.
Yeah.
Whereas like,
I love
but
bitch being look, I love bitch being reclaimed by queer culture into like a term of endearment.
Well, very
and like
specific. I will say very specific pockets of queer culture because there
Yeah.
are queer women who like abhor that word because of its misogynistic roots, and
Yes.
there are. I say this because like I know people who are very like who feel very strongly, and I do my best to not say that in that way around them because
and
yeah.
that's what it comes down to. On it, I mean, well, let me clarify.
Yeah.
There are certain words, just don't say them. like there we've given the letter abbreviations to the three big ones that you should really just kind of wipe out of your your vernacular entirely. But being understanding to someone and knowing it's the same as learning what someone's preferred pronouns are. You figure it out and you work with it. And it's like I might be able to lovingly call my sister and all of my friends bitch, but if one person says, I really don't like when you say that, I will not say it in front of that person. I will make a concentrated effort to not say that. And then it usually kind of just becomes routine and habit where you're not using it that much in general. To this point, I refer to people, even if I know their pronouns, I tend to just lean towards they, them, in general, because I'm like, I think that is a perfectly fine neutral pronoun to talk about anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that it's always like for me, I'm always constantly trying to practice like using that as a default when I don't know or someone's not introduced their pronouns.
Yeah.
Like even with like Matt, right? Like chances are
yeah.
male identified persons using that name, but we also just don't know. Like there's so much that we don't know that it's just better to just be default and call it what you will. Call me Call me a liberal cuck. I doubt people who are listening to
I was
going to
say, people who are listening to a gay man and a straight man break down episodes of the OC, I don't think we're going to be too worried about.
Their fellow cuck. That's what we're going to change the name of this show to Cuck People Problems.
Man, I guess there is that slight chance that someone sees the name and they're like, God damn right, we got problems. I want to check out this here podcast.
Yeah. Oh no!
No, they got one of them queers on here.
One of them queers.
And from the TikTok videos I've seen, he don't seem that white to me.
Yeah. See, here's the thing, though: the person that you have in mind is probably thinking that you're the queer.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble, who says Valentine's Day is just for couples. Just because you're not in a relationship doesn't mean you can't get out there and live your best love life. That's where Bumble comes in. This February 14th, you can flip the script and give those relationshippers a friendly dose of FOMO. Say no to staying in this Valentine's Day and yes to more. More dates, more first kisses, more gossip for the group chat girlies. Do Valentine's your way. Date now on Bumble.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
I think we can step off the soapbox for a little bit to briefly talk about the other subplot in this episode. Well, actually, I do want to call out. Joe, get ready.
Uh-oh.
I enjoyed a scene with Julie Cooper.
Yay!
I enjoyed her and Kirsten having their little dinner after all the stuff.
Isn't Cal awful?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I am charmed by this scene. I don't know if I'm Team Julie Cooper just yet, but I liked that scene. If I see more of that Julie Cooper, great. I don't know how else to say this. I think that Seth's apology fucking sucked in the fact that it made both Anna and Summer stupid horny for Seth is the most piece of straight white man fantasy I have ever seen in my entire life.
I'm like, wow, we're really setting women back, aren't we?
He's like, listen, I know that I was kind of juggling the two of you at the same time, but look at you girls. I just can't not choose. You're both so beautiful and lovely. And now they're both like, oh my God, those words were so beautiful and honest.
Yeah, because we are beautiful. I love you. I love you. Marry me.
And now motherfucker's going to have 2 dates, 2 nights in a row with 2 equally beautiful women. He should end up with Anna, but that's beside the point.
But again,
I feel like part of me is just feeling the rage of a guy who was single through most of high school and a pretty good chunk of college, who would have fucking laid in the middle of a busy road to get a date with a girl like Anna. And I'm like,
Snow Patrol,
yeah. I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? If I just laid here. Yeah,
but
exactly.
See, you also don't like Summer, right? So you don't see Summer now as endgame.
I don't hate Summer. It's not a matter of love or hate at this point, because I've liked Summer fine the last couple episodes. I haven't been on this Summer sucks. I appreciate that she is falling in love with Seth Cohen, and that is very cute. And I get that he's been obsessed with this girl. I'm a logical man, Joe. I think about the future, and I'm like, I can already see because I am Seth Cohen. I've come to terms with that. Seth Cohen is me. He is a dorky comic book reading, movie cinephile, indie music nerd, right? It's with Anna, I see watching a black and white movie and watching it together. I see going to see Death Cab live. I see all of these things that are fun activities to do with the person that you love. I can't imagine Summer sitting down and watching Marx Brothers with him. I can't see her ever wanting to go to a Death Cab concert. It's these little bits and pieces that I kind of that's where in my mind, and I know this is my fault because I do have a tendency to see the full scope and full future the second that I start to fall for somebody. And that is a thing that I have to work on, and I try to not think about that stuff. But it's like Anna is the girl that you can instantly see a good, happy future with, and at this point, Summer has been nothing but a very attractive girl that you've had a crush on, but have zero things in common. Like, I just would not be struggling with this decision.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, like.
I get that a lot.
And I get that I'm projecting on this. And maybe I'm the dick. Maybe I'm who's like...
maybe it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah,
Matt,
it's like, look, I am open to the fact that I could be the anti-hero.
Yes.
But I'm just like, I hate how much I see myself in Seth. And it gives me like secondhand deuce chills because there's so many things where I'm like, yep, that I did that. Oop, I said that. I made that poor decision. Like, I am like... reliving the worst moments of my teen years through Seth a little bit. And then I have friends who are like, oh, I fucking hated Anna, which like...
That is interesting.
The only way that I can... So let me ask you this question and give it to me as spoiler-free as possible.
Okay.
But from what I'm seeing in this show, short of her like slow-key suddenly becoming this like closeted racist, homophobe, like awful person... in the show, we know the
in real
actress
life
herself,
yes,
yeah. But like, short of that, is it literally just something like a Team Jacob versus Team Edward for these people, where it's just like, well, because it's not Summer, I thus must hate this other option that is taking my Seth Cohen from my Summer, or does like is Anna gonna make me hate Anna at some point in this show?
I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you no.
Okay.
I do think that what I will say is that they are...
Well, they can't be a throuple for too long. This was 2004.
No. And you've seen Christmica, so
which is next week's episode. I know that but I don't remember enough about it. Like I remember Summer in a Wonder Woman outfit.
Yeah. But see, now you're gonna have a lot more insight, which is gonna be really great. You'll have like you basically have half a year's worth of episodes in the diegesis of this story.
I mean, here's my prediction. Here's my guess. Anyway. I'm going to assume that Seth continues to not be able to make a decision, and then Anna makes that decision for him. Because I think that if it was reversed, this is why I could never do something like an open relationship or something like polyamory, is that I do want to be, I don't want to be battling for a second person's affection. And I feel like at a certain point, Anna's going to feel like, if you haven't chosen me by now, you're never going to choose me, and I'm just continuing to get my hopes up and hurt myself in this situation. And honestly, if that's what her choice is, I agree with her. And I think that that's the right mature thing to do. And, I know I've slightly spoiled for myself that it's not like she's here for 4 seasons, so she's definitely disappearing at some point from like Newport entirely, whether it's that she moves or just her character magically just flutters into nothing.
It just evaporates,
But I'm like, I think that she's going to have to make the decision for herself, because I can't see her like having this crazy heel turn at the end that makes Seth Cohen suddenly be like, oh, I was wrong about you all along and it has to be Summer now. Like, I feel like he's never going to make a decision until someone takes themselves off the board.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. We'll find out.
I think that Matt, I think you're going to like how the show ultimately deals with Anna. Like, that sounds like they're going to
take her to the back. This old yeller her, like, Seth is like, I've made my decision. Now I must take you to the pool house and put you down.
I gotta put you down now. I think you're gonna like how they deal with Anna. I think you're going to. I'm struggling right now to see how. I know I can see clearly the scene where we say goodbye to Anna, but I don't want I'm not going to tell you how that goes, because it's in my opinion, it's one of the more beautiful scenes. But you're gonna like it, and you're gonna deal with it, and you're gonna have to deal with it because you kind of already know where we're going with everything. So,
all right. Well, I think we've reached the end then, so it's time to talk about a little bit of music. Way less songs in this episode than the previous one. We mentioned earlier, episode kicks off with the Dandy Warhols, We Used to Be Friends. We get 2 songs from Jet. Get What You Need is playing when Luke and Ryan are sitting in the car, and the final scene ends with Move On. Low key, just throwing this out there as a music lover in general, Move On is such an underratedly beautiful song by Jet. Like, if you only know Jet for like Cold Hard Bitch and Are You Gonna Be My Girl, do yourself a favor and check out Move On and look at what you've done. They wrote some really great like slow ballads as well. And then I couldn't figure out where this song appeared in the episode, but Belle and Sebastian have a song at some point in this called If She Wants Me. I mean, I think we're going to agree on this, maybe, but I mean, it has to be the Veronica Mars theme, We Used to Be Friends. It plays like 4 times in the episode for some reason.
Which, like, so what I love about this show, and we're seeing it here, we saw it in the last episode with Caravan, they are not afraid to use a pop tune as a leitmotif for something.
Yes.
Like, they are not afraid to do that, which, like, I don't know if you really see anymore. And I think that as soon as I say this, I'm going to see it in the next 3 shows.
I feel like the leitmotif, though, becomes like that's like a film thing so much more than a TV show theme. You know, like I should dig it up. It would be a great thing to dig up and at least send to you, but maybe put online somewhere again. One time in college, I did a 5-minute short documentary that was about music as a character. And I like sat down and talked to a bunch of different professors at the college who were like film teachers and music teachers and like pop culture and American studies teachers to talk about like the moments in film that really like captured a totally different vibe. And the music teacher spoke at length about John Williams' score for Batman Returns and how every single character in that movie has a very specific collection of notes that play to convey sinister, sad, like anytime you see the Penguin, it is a very specific line of notes, but like the way that those notes are played varies between, is the Penguin happy, is he frustrated, is he dying, is he like, so, you know, obviously a giant film thing, not so much on TV shows, especially like these, you know, I know this isn't a sitcom, it's clearly a teen drama, but it does kind of lean into sitcom tropes, similarly to how Gilmore Girls walked that weird line of feeling at times like a 40-minute sitcom episode with like the occasional drama. But yeah, I agree with you. It's very unique to have that in a TV show. For the pop culture promo, I'm going to go first because mine honestly is more of a this should have been more of a pop culture moment.
Okay.
Hulu put out a series at the end of December that ended beginning of January that I feel like nobody watched or was talking about, which was Welcome to Chippendales, which I just thought I liked Pam and Tommy. Like, I thought Pam and Tommy was really well done. I think that Welcome to Chippendales is such a better show. It's such a stronger script. It's such a wilder story that isn't really told as much. Like there's a lot of death that is tied to the first couple years of Chippendale's existence that I had no clue about.
Did you listen to the podcast?
I haven't, no.
Oh, yeah. I still haven't watched it because, like, again, it's one of those shows that I think it's going to find new life in the next few months because it is a bingeable show. Especially as we move into the summer. But I listened to I think Pineapple Street did it. It was Welcome to Your Fantasy is what the name of the podcast is. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite podcasts of 2021 that I listened to. And so I'm really, and I remember thinking like, man, if they made this into a movie, it's probably going to be Kumail Nanjiani playing Steve Banerjee. And lo and behold, that's exactly what fucking happens. So I'm curious to watch it. I've heard some interesting things from folks that I know that listened to the show and then watched it. And choices that were made that they thought were really strange. So but I can't wait to watch it and like, you know, make my own, draw my own conclusions.
Yeah, no, I'll have to check that out. Well, what's your pop culture promo then?
So related to what
Okay.
you just said about Pam and Tommy, I watched recently the Pamela A Love Story documentary on Netflix.
I just finished it literally 2 minutes before coming up here to send you the record link.
I was like, I just like put it on one day and I was like, yeah, let me just watch the let me not watch another episode of Happy Endings, and I'm gonna watch I'll watch this show or this documentary, and I was like, wow, we really, the media really fucked that woman over, and she was recognizable to me. So, and I mean that in a way that like I feel like I know who this woman is because I've met a woman like her before. Misunderstood, but like very certain of her morals and her values in a way that like people, she is playing with people's perception of her where like they don't think she's in on the joke, but she really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel weird with the Pamela Anderson side of things, right? Because I think that the story of Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee is a story of two broken people who need help, who found each other.
Mhm.
And they neither one of them seeks the help that they actually need, but they react to the brokenness in different ways.
Mhm.
And one is way more self-destructive than the other one is. And that documentary, I think, further leaned into that thesis for me, where it's like she's constantly it's that idea of like, she encapsulates to me the idea of like girls like a bad boy because they want to try to fix them, because she seems to constantly be drawn to these unfixable bad guys. But like, she herself at no point ever seemed to be a bad person. You know, like she may have played into like what the media made her out to be, but like at the core, one of the saddest things in that movie is towards the end of it when she's in the bathtub talking and she just says, because I didn't end up with the father of my children, I will always feel like a failure. And it's like, that is so like, it's like, that literally makes me weep inside, because it's like you have so much that you have offered to this world. And because of this guy who maybe he is a good dad, I don't know, I don't care. At the end of the day, I have heard more than enough stories that my thesis that Tommy Lee is probably a piece of shit still stands in my mind, where it's like, you have let this guy who is not by any stretch of the imagination worthy of your love be the reason why you are sad and alone constantly. And it's like, that breaks my heart. And that's like one of those things where it's like, I have a feeling that if that girl started really going to a therapist, really started to work through the deeper seated stuff with her family and the deeper seated perception of her failures and quote unquote, I think that she would either just be happily single with no real pain behind her eyes ever again, or she would be able to open herself up to truly fall in love with a good person.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, she's not a bad person. There are people who have the exact wounds that she has that are absolute menaces to society because of those wounds. So like, I do want to celebrate that she has taken her pain and used it to help others in as many ways as she could. But I walked away from that documentary being like, yeah, but you also got to turn around and help yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I like love how open she is with her kids, with her sons, and her sons also like, I mean, they're older, you know, they're grown now, so they see her for who she is. They see her for the complexities of And I'm really curious because like I see I'm really curious because like, you know, what was that like to be the son of, to be, or to have your mother be like a Playboy playmate, and what were those conversations like when you were coming into your own sexuality and all of that? Like, I'm just curious as to like how that was negotiated and what kind of effect that had. But again, it's more from a, I don't know, that's more from a like kind of like I'm not saying that I'm not like trying to like exploit them or
no,
anything,
I think it's a couple things, right? So first of all, there's a scene in the movie where Pamela gets up and walks away, but the camera continues to roll on her son that's still sitting in the room, and he says, "My parents were the two most insane people in the world." And like, and he doesn't mean it in like a I hate that I grew up with them, but it's just him simply stating a fact. Like, I grew up with two very crazy people. And like he acknowledges like it almost hurts to watch these videos because you can tell that they loved each other, but that wasn't the love that I got to witness when I was a kid. I work with a lot of people in the adult industry, and I think the other big difference is that, you know, people who work in the adult industry to a certain extent, like they get to choose when to tell their kids about their past.
Yeah.
Pamela doesn't, because she is still like that sex tape is still such a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's probably still getting passed around and watched on like 16-year-old boys are probably still checking out that video on Pornhub. You know what I mean? Like
they are, it's because it's out there. It's been out there for a while, for decades now at this point.
But I think of like, if you listen to an interview with someone like Jay Baker, someone that I think is a fascinating person, who is the son of Tammy Faye Baker, and he talks about like the hardest thing in the world is being a child watching your family break down in a very public way, and you having to live every day as a 8-year-old kid who had nothing to do with what your parents were doing and being shunned because of it. And like, you know, he talks about like, I wasn't allowed inside of a church because what my mom and dad did, as if me, the 8-year-old boy, had any say in that decision.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, that's probably the closest thing I've come to someone verbalizing what I'm sure Brandon and Dylan Lee have gone through their entire lives, is they both seem like pretty normal, well-adjusted like,
dudes,
kids. Like they're just, but it's like they're always, it's the same when you look at like Kurt Cobain's daughter, and like people make a big deal about like, oh, Kurt Cobain's daughter doesn't even listen to Nirvana music, and it's like, well, her dad did kill himself out of the fame stress. Like, I don't know if it would be easy to listen to your deceased father's heroin-induced songwriting, but like every single thing that she says or does is quote unquote matters because she is Kurt Cobain's daughter, and like that is a thing that she can never not be. Or even Slim Shady's daughter. You know what I mean? Like Eminem's daughter will have that for the rest of her. Like there are these very specific pocket child celebrities that never asked to be a celebrity. They just happen to be born to a notoriously famous person.
Yeah, and I think that's the word there, is notorious.
Yeah. The other thing that was notorious was Luke's dad's secret that was revealed this week on the podcast. You know, this was a little bit more of a stressful episode, but if I recall correctly, is next week just going to be a nice warm blanket of Christmas fun and jolliness.
It's a yo-yo, right? It gives you the drama and pulls you back a little bit, gives you, I mean, there's plenty of drama next week, but it's very, I'm curious now that you have way more context, how you're going to receive Christmas.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week with even more.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.